Rain drummed a frantic rhythm on the tin roof of Officer James Callahan's cruiser as he stared at the rusted mouth of the tunnel. His K-9 partner, Rocco, a lean German shepherd with eyes too intelligent for his own good, whined low, pawing at the mud-slick entrance. Something inside that dark hollow had shifted, calling to them, and the sound wasn't just a whisper. It was a cry that clawed at James's chest. Every instinct screamed to stay back, yet a deeper, stubborn need to find the source pulled him forward. If he hesitated now, whatever screamed in that tunnel might vanish or wait for him. The tunnel mouth yawned before him like a gaping wound in the earth, dark and slick with years of decay. Water dripped from its edges, forming shallow puddles that reflected the occasional flash of his flashlight like broken mirrors. James Callahan's boots sank slightly into the mud, each step an echo of his uncertainty. Rocco pressed close, ears pricked, tail stiff. The German shepherd's instincts were sharper than any of James's years on the force, and yet James couldn't shake the pull of the unknown, couldn't quiet the gnawing sense that something or someone was waiting for him inside. He crouched, unzipped the side of his jacket, and checked the small revolver strapped at his hip. The tunnel wasn't long, or at least it shouldn't have been. Maps said it ran under the old railway line and ended near the abandoned grain mill on the far side of town. But maps didn't speak of the screams he'd heard, faint yet unmistakable, that had carried through the drizzle like they were riding the wind just for him. Rocco growled low in his throat, and James froze. "You hear that, buddy?" he whispered, keeping his voice low, almost reverent. The dog's ears twitched, his growl sharpening, then settling into a tense whine. James hated admitting it, but he felt nervous. Not scared, exactly. Nervous. There was a difference, one he'd learned the hard way after years in Blackwood County. Fear made men freeze. Nervousness made them pay attention. The first 50 feet of the tunnel were deceptively quiet, punctuated only by the soft drip of water and the scuff of James's boots. Faded graffiti marred the walls, scrawled letters that spoke of long-forgotten boredom, long nights with nothing better to do than scratch names into brick. Some of it was decades old, flaking with pain and grime. He traced a finger along one jagged line, L plus M 1978. The initials made him frown. The style looked recent enough to not belong with the rest, too deliberate, too sharp. Whoever had made them had been hiding, watching. A sudden noise, a scraping sound behind him, made him spin. Rocco's hackles rose instantly. A rat, probably, but the echo bounced weirdly, dragging down the walls like a living thing. James cursed under his breath. The tunnel was a trap for the unwary, a place where shadows grew claws. "Stay close," he muttered. "Eyes and ears, buddy." The further they went, the more oppressive the darkness became. The flashlight beam danced along the jagged walls, revealing cracks that dripped water like tiny stalactites. The air smelled damp and metallic, a scent that reminded James uncomfortably of blood, or maybe rusted iron. His thoughts turned involuntarily to his last case, the one he couldn't shake, where a boy had vanished from the same railway line under eerily similar circumstances. The case had gone cold, officially unsolvable, but unofficially he had never stopped thinking about it. Then the cry came. It wasn't a full scream, more a ragged, desperate sound, like someone had been running to the mud, falling, then calling out for help. It echoed against the brick walls, then bounced into the tunnel so far ahead that James couldn't tell how deep it ran. Rocco froze, stiff as a statue, tail rigid, ears forward. James swallowed hard. His chest tightened, a mix of anticipation and dread pressing down like a stone. He felt the familiar adrenaline spike that always preceded a potential disaster. And yet he stepped forward. The tunnel bent sharply, forcing him to hug the damp wall. Water sloshed into his boots as he rounded the corner. Shadows seemed to shift on the walls, forming shapes that made his stomach twist. His mind fought instinctively to explain it. Wind, water, trick of the light. But nothing quieted the cold awareness crawling along his spine. A faint glimmer appeared ahead. Something reflective. He slowed, crouched, raising the flashlight. It bounced off a small metallic object half buried in the mud. James knelt to pick it up. A child's bracelet, delicate and bright against the dull brown of the tunnel floor. His stomach lurched. Rocco whined, press against his side. The dog's body language screamed the same message James's mind was starting to form. Someone or something had been here recently. Someone small. Someone terrified. He moved forward again, flashlight shaking slightly. Then he heard it, clearly this time, words muffled but distinct. "Please help." It was thin, hoarse, and the echo stretched it into something monstrous, something almost unnatural. James froze, realizing with sudden, gut-wrenching clarity that the sound had come from a side passage, a narrow crevice just wide enough for a child to squeeze through. "Rocco," he whispered. The dog barked once, sharp and controlled, then padded toward the opening. James followed, squeezing through the mud-stained gap. The side passage opened into a small chamber. The walls were close and damp, and the air smelled sharper here, like ammonia. There, crouched against the far wall, was a small boy. Mud and scratches streaked his face. Tears smeared down his cheeks. His wide eyes fixed on James, a mixture of terror and relief. I couldn't the boy stammered. James knelt, holding out a hand, though part of him knew the boy wouldn't reach it. Rocco sniffed, then nudged the boy gently with his nose. The child flinched but didn't pull away. "It's okay," James said softly, voice cracking slightly despite himself. "You're safe now. You're safe." But even as he spoke, James's eyes flicked to the shadows beyond the chamber. Something moved there, just a hint of motion, a dark figure ducking behind a broken beam. The boy hadn't been alone in that tunnel. A chill ran down James's spine. The tunnel had secrets, and whatever had taken the boy, whatever had made him cry for help, wasn't finished yet. He tightened his grip on the revolver and signaled Rocco to stay close. Ahead, deeper into the tunnel, the shadows thickened, and from somewhere far behind, echoing off the walls, came a low, deliberate laughter. James's heart pounded. This was no accident. This was a trap, and he was right in the middle of it. The boy's sobs echoed faintly through the tunnel as James crouched beside him, trying to calm both his racing thoughts and the child's trembling body. Rocco pressed his cold nose to the boy's hand, letting out a soft, reassuring growl. It was a fragile peace, a heartbeat of quiet in a place designed to swallow it. I'm Thomas," the boy whispered, voice barely audible over the dripping water. His wide, tear-streaked eyes darted to every shadow. He said he'd get me if I ran." James swallowed hard, crouching lower to meet the boy's gaze. "Who, Thomas? Who did this to you?" The boy shivered. I don't know. He wears a mask. L something." His words faltered, almost as if speaking them aloud might summon the figure into the room. James's heart thumped. A mask. That explained the metallic glint he glimpsed earlier in the chamber, the sharpness of the boy's terror, the precision of the trap. Someone had been watching for weeks, maybe months. The tunnel wasn't just abandoned. It was a lair, and Thomas had been trapped in it, alone, until now. The faint laughter returned, echoing from deeper in the tunnel. James's jaw tightened. Whoever this L was, they were confident, too confident. He glanced at Rocco. The dog's body was taut, ears forward, tail low. He could smell it. The presence, the predator. James knew instinctively that this wasn't just a single person. There might be accomplices. Maybe more children. Maybe more victims. "Thomas, stay close to me, okay? Don't move," James instructed, voice firm but calm. "I've got you. We'll get out of here." But the tunnel wasn't done testing him. A sudden metallic clatter reverberated from the corner ahead, a sound of chains dragging across brick. Rocco barked sharply, for standing on end. James tensed, gripping his revolver. Then a voice, low and chilling, slid from the shadows. Well, what do we have here?" James's blood ran cold. The figure stepped into view, partially masked, wearing dark clothing streaked with mud. He was tall, thin, but there was a predatory calm in his movements. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He simply watched, calculating. "You shouldn't have come here, officer," the man said, voice smooth, almost casual. "This isn't your business." James forced his voice steady. "It is my business if a child's in danger." The masked man tilted his head. Danger or opportunity? His laugh was dry, humorless. You like to play hero, don't you? Saves your conscience, I suppose. James's mind raced. Hero? Conscience? Who was this man? Why the mask? And why did he seem familiar, like a shadow from the past? Rocco growled low, moving in front of James. The dog was a shield, a warning. The man raised his hands, slightly, in mock surrender. Oh, I mean no harm. Yet, I'm just testing. You'll see. He stepped back, disappearing into the darkness, the echo of his footsteps fading slowly. James exhaled, relief mingling with fear. Thomas, we need to keep moving. This tunnel isn't safe. The boy nodded silently, clutching James's jacket. They advanced cautiously, the narrow walls pressing in, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. The cries and echoes from the depths became intermittent, almost conversational, teasing their ears with the promise of more horrors. As they turned another corner, James spotted something etched into the wall. Trust in 01L. He froze. His mind reeled. This was no random criminal. This was personal. Someone wanted him to know he couldn't trust anyone. And that meant someone close, someone he thought he could rely on, could be involved. A memory flickered. Detective Laura Kent, his partner from the last missing child case. Her voice, her insistence that he shouldn't get involved. The way she had discouraged his investigation. Could she have known something? Could she have helped this man? The thought felt like a knife in his gut. Rocco barked, breaking James's spiraling thoughts. Ahead, the tunnel opened slightly, a larger chamber, but the walls were streaked with grime and old blood. In the center, a single chair overturned, with straps dangling loosely. The faint smell of decay hung in the air. Thomas whimpered, stepping back. He takes them here. James's heart sank. We're almost there, buddy. Almost. Suddenly, another sound. Footsteps behind them. Faster, closer, deliberate. James spun, gun raised. The masked man's accomplice emerged from the shadows. A figure he hadn't seen before, heavier, with a slow, confident stride. Thought you'd escape so easily, the man said. His tone was mocking, almost intimate. You don't even know what's coming. James's mind raced. Two against him in the dark, in a confined tunnel. The boy could scream, but the echo would only give him away faster. He needed a plan, and fast. He whispered to Rocco, flank left. Thomas crouched low. The dog obeyed instantly, sliding silently along the shadows. James raised a revolver, aiming carefully. His pulse hammered in his ears, but he forced himself to breathe, to focus. The accomplice stepped closer. You're brave, officer, braver than most. But bravery won't save you. Then a sudden movement. Rocco lunged, teeth bared, biting the man's arm. A grunt of surprise echoed. James fired once, narrowly missing the figure, but sending him stumbling back. The tunnel erupted into chaos. Thomas screamed, panicked. Water splashed as they struggled, shadows leaping against the walls. But in the chaos, James noticed something impossible. The mask, it was someone he knew. His blood froze. Laura, he shouted. The masked figure froze for half a second, then ducked, disappearing deeper into the tunnel. James's chest tightened. Betrayal cut sharper than fear. Laura, his partner, someone he had trusted implicitly, could be behind this. Thomas clutched him tightly. He's coming back. James took a steadying breath. Then we'll be ready. But first, we need to survive this chamber. The tunnel seemed to close in around them. Every drip, every echo, every shadow a predator. James's mind raced, not just with tactics, but with the horror of the truth settling in. The person he had trusted, the woman he had once confided in, could be orchestrating every scream, every trap. And somewhere deeper, the masked figure's laughter echoed again, closer this time. James presses back against the cold wall, revolver raised, Rocco at his side, Thomas trembling but alive. They were in the heart of the predator's lair now. And James knew every decision from this point would determine who lived and who didn't. Because in this tunnel, trust was a weapon, Betrayal was a game, and innocence was prey. The tunnel felt alive, pressing in from all sides. The walls glistened with condensation, each drip a ticking second counting down to some inevitable horror. James pressed Thomas close to his side, revolver shaking slightly in his hand, and listened to Rocco growl low, almost vibrating with tension. Every shadow could be the masked figure, every echo a trap. Laura, the name burned in his mind like acid. He had trusted her, confided in her, counted on her judgment, and now she was the architect of terror. He couldn't reconcile the memory of her quiet laugh in the precinct with the cold, deliberate cruelty that echoed through this tunnel. "Stay behind me, Thomas," he whispered, voice rough. The boy nodded, clinging tightly to James's jacket, wide eyes glimmering with fear. A sudden shift of air. A click. Metal against stone resonated in the chamber ahead. The masked accomplice. Laura's movements were precise, controlled, and far too confident. It was as if she had rehearsed this 1,000 times in her mind. James tightened his grip on the revolver, heart hammering. "Rocco, left flank. Now!" The dog obeyed instantly, slipping into shadow, muscles coiled like a spring. From the corner of his eye, James caught movement. Laura stepping forward, mask glinting in the flashlight's beam. "I knew you'd follow, James," she said, voice calm, almost conversational. "But you're too predictable." James's chest ached, not from fear, but from betrayal. "Why, Laura? Why him? Why the kids?" Her laugh was low, chilling, a sound that seemed to bounce off the walls. "Because power is born in fear, James. You taught me that. The system failed, so I decided someone has to control it." Control. The word hit him like a hammer. The meticulous planning, the traps, the hidden cameras, the weeks of stalking. This wasn't random cruelty. This was method, obsession, Laura's obsession. Then she stepped forward suddenly, throwing a switch on the wall. Lights flickered on, dim but enough to illuminate the chamber. James's stomach dropped. Across the room were cages, small, claustrophobic. Some empty, some with children curled inside, eyes wide, frozen with terror. Thomas whimpered. James's hands tightened around him. Laura's face, masked partially, revealed only eyes. Cold, calculating eyes, devoid of the warmth he had once trusted. "See? I'm not the monster here. The world outside is. I'm saving them from chaos, from neglect, from people who won't protect them. And if that means I have to scare to control, then so be it." James felt fury and grief swirl into something sharp and overwhelming. "You're insane," he said quietly, almost to himself. "This isn't protection, it's prison." Her eyes flickered, almost human, almost vulnerable. Then she masked it instantly. "Call what you want, but you'll never stop me. Never." Rocco barked, and James realized she hadn't accounted for the dog. In one motion, he signaled Rocco to flank again. The dog lunged, teeth clamping on her sleeve. Laura reacted instantly, spinning, pulling a small blade from her belt. Metal caught light and glinted sharply. "James!" Thomas screamed, his small hands clutching at James's jacket. The fight was sudden and violent, a blur of shadow, metal, and adrenaline. James pressed forward, revolver raised. He fired a warning shot, not to kill but to disarm. Laura froze, eyes widening slightly, before ducking behind a column. And then came the sound that made his blood run colder than ice. A child screaming from one of the cages, echoed and amplified through the narrow tunnel. It wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus of terror, each cry bouncing off the walls, each echo magnifying a horror. James's chest ached. He realized that every decision he had made, every hesitation, had led them here. And yet there was no time to grieve, only action. He darted forward, firing another warning shot. Rocco at his side, teeth bared and growling. The shadows shifted as Laura tried to escape further into the tunnel. But James was faster, fueled by rage, fear, and the desperate need to protect Thomas and the other children. In a final, heart-stopping moment, he cornered her near a collapsed section of tunnel. She glared at him, eyes blazing behind the mask. "You don't understand," she began. James's voice was steady, cold, final. "I understand perfectly. And now it ends." He tackled her to the ground, forcing the knife away, pressing his weight down until she could move no more. Rocco snarled, teeth close, warning her not to try anything foolish. Silence fell, thick and heavy, broken only by the sobs of the children. James released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Laura lay beneath him, breathing hard, her mask askew, eyes still defiant. But there was no longer an air of invincibility. She was human, fallible. The authorities arrived minutes later, officers swarming the tunnel, securing the area, freeing the children. Thomas clung to James as paramedics checked him over. The boy's fear was fading, replaced slowly by relief, the first fragile thread of safety since the nightmare began. James stood in the damp tunnel, watching as Laura was led away in handcuffs. His chest ached, not just from the fight, but from the realization that evil could wear the face of someone you trusted, someone you confided in. Morality wasn't black and white. Trust wasn't a guarantee. And yet, the children were alive. He knelt beside Thomas, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You're safe now," he whispered. The boy nodded, tears still glimmering, but a fragile smile forming. Rocco pressed his head into James's side, silent, steadfast. Together, they walked back toward the light at the end of the tunnel. Above ground, the rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking, slivers of sunlight piercing the gray. The world outside hadn't changed, but James felt it differently now. He had faced betrayal, darkness, and fear, and emerged with life intact. But the echoes of the tunnel, the cries, the shadows, the twisted morality, would stay with him forever. He looked down at Thomas. "You're going to be okay." Truly. And for the first time in hours, maybe years, he let himself believe it. The tunnel behind them was quiet now. The cries had stopped. The darkness remained, but its power had ended. Not through luck, but through courage, loyalty, and a willingness to face impossible truths. James and Rocco, with Thomas safe between them, stepped into the sunlight, carrying the weight of what they had survived. And though the world would continue spinning, indifferent and harsh, the memory of that cry, echoing for miles, would linger in their souls forever.